Hello and welcome to the newest Livebytes live session. I'm your host, I'm Grigic, and today with me is a very special guest, Adela Mehic-Dzanic. She is one of the people that I look up to in this terms of networking. So we're going to talk all about how you can build your world-class network. So I'm going to introduce her now.
Hi
Hello,
everyone.
Adela.
Hi Amar. Hi everyone.
Good
Thank you
evening.
good evening from Vienna.
No problem at all. Could you give you a little bit of an introduction about yourself, what you do, and a little bit about your background?
Great. Happy to do that. So I'll start with what I do. So I have a background in telecommunication, master of telecommunication, and for the last 6 years I've been in the field of Internet of Things, machine-to-machine connected devices. Happy to say that, to introduce yourself as like, I know this Internet of Things when it was called machine to machine. Always wanted to say that. It's a very exciting field, very diverse, connected, global. So this is what I enjoy very much to talk about it, and maybe we will touch it upon it. What else I do is I moved to Vienna the last 6 years. So last 6 years I've been in Vienna, and quite recently I've taken a couple of roles actively in a few of female networks. One of them is the Female Leaders Network that we have founded at Executive Academy. So that's a business school of Vienna University of Economics here in Austria. It's a very global community with over 1,500 women executives, entrepreneurs all over the world. And apart from that, I'm as well this year starting being part of the Businesswoman of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is another story. So very, very close to my heart, as both of you and I are coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the Businesswoman of Bosnia and Herzegovina is a very unique networking community as well here in Austria, in Vienna. And we have, of course, very close cooperation with our business partners back in Bosnia, back in Sarajevo. So a lot of things. So basically, women in tech, female leader, proud to be here and talk about it and share it. And as being called among some of the people, networking queen. So that's also IoT. So people know me with Internet of Things and the networking queen. So I'm really looking forward to share some of my experience with you here.
Okay.
And if I may add just one thing, thank you again for inviting me. And for this 2020, it's a very special year. And I decided to take a very personal goal in this year. And one of these goals is to reach 1,000 women globally, and to tell them yes. So it's one of the things that I call serving the community, giving back to the community. And I've decided this year to do that, starting with this year, and I was very, very, very nervous, to be honest, to put that number, because when you like talk about things and like, yeah, I want to do this and that, and then when you put an exact number to it, and when you put the timeline and everything, it becomes a goal, it becomes a reality. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. So maybe we'll touch upon that as well during this networking, because it has a lot to do that. How to achieve that.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, you've seen the last live session that I did about your achieving your true potential, and that's one thing about that was also goal setting. And I think one of those things is especially what you're doing right now. I mean, setting a goal for 1,000 women is it's a huge goal, but it's cool to see that some people are really going for that. So. What I would like to start off with is just the first topic, and I think when you're talking about networking, it's good to look at why is it important to have a good network, right? Why is it important to become a good networker, have lots of people in your network? So why do you feel that's an important thing?
Yeah. Today I will be sharing mostly my stories and personal insights. So of course I've read books and articles and papers around it, and in the end I can share some of the books that if you're interested about it. But basically for me, it's when you realize that that you live in a very connected world. So basically, we can start it from there, and it has also, of course, to do with, I must admit, with who I am. So I'm a very curious person. I love to talk to people. I love to get to know what they're doing, why they're doing, they're working on it. So networking can be a great way to that. So basically, for me, it means I don't go to Google and Google artificial intelligence. I call my colleague or my Michael or Philip or whoever, I say, okay, tell me what's happening in that. I want to know this, and why is this working like that? Or I call Nedim because I don't understand why this thing on the website is working like that. Or for the networking events and conferences and stuff like that. So it has to do very much with your personality as well. For me, it's a very kind of personal goal and personal thing that I curious, want to know people, want to see what is happening, will get the insights. Nowadays we are overflowing with information. You go to Google and you can find anything and everything what you want to know. But basically, I want to know from people who are doing it. People who are living it, who are working on that, especially, for instance, people come to me and want to know about the Internet of Things or digitalization, digital transformation. So they come to me and say, okay, what are the insights? What projects you're working on? So it's back and forth. So it's very, very much related to where you are for your career. So one of the things is insights, okay, being there, being a thoughtful leader, sharing your insight. But the other hand, it's your career. For instance, where you are in your career. So if you are 9-to-5 job, and you talked about that with Amer last time, 9-to-5, this is okay. I respect that. Go for it. But the world that we live in nowadays, I think, as we have experienced in the last couple of months, so things have changed. Things are moving very fast, and you have to be able, to react to that, especially in your role. If you are having responsibility, if you're leading the team, so you have to know, what is happening in the world around yourself. And for your careers, of course, think about yourself. And for instance, all our viewers here, when you have a new job posting in your company, who do you go to? So do you, first thing that we do, and that's what I did like a couple of months ago when we were looking for new people. I just went through my network and said, okay, this is the person that I used to work with. He's reliable. I can trust him. We did projects together. I really vouch for this person. If that's not the case, I go back to my network and talk to a couple of people and say, look, we are looking for a developer, for instance. We know how hard it is to find people for instance, in this specific area. So do you have someone? So there's many reasons, basically, but for me, it's the best, go out and be among people. And for instance, this opportunity where I work now, the Internet of Things, also was brought to me through this networking, because I, as on the other side, like to be to see what is the new in the field of your industry, and this is the best what you can get, reading the books and watching the YouTubes, but as well going out and meeting people at different conferences and events. So there's many reasons, but a very, very positive story. And this is what I live. So we walk the talk, basically. I live. And I try to get many people on board. So
and the interesting thing is when you look at it, you've posted, I think you posted it on Facebook, how we got to this point, right? How we got to this point that we're talking to each other and doing this session, because that's all through networking, right? It's all through just talking to or starting something, right? You're starting to help out, or you're starting to do a particular thing, or you go to a meetup or something like that, and then someone knows someone and someone knows someone else, and then you get connected that way. And
exactly,
it's a good thing, because a lot of people say, like, okay, also when you look at like bigger companies, right? If you want to work for an Apple or a Google or a Microsoft or something like that, what you will see in most cases, especially in technology, is it's a really small world, and people talk to each other, right? People talk to each other. If you know someone, you're ahead if you know someone, and like, okay, we're going to talk with each other, and I know that person, so they're going to help me out in maybe landing that job, or at least getting me to a point where I can get an interview for the job. Because normally if you send your like CV or your resume to Microsoft or Google, I mean, they have so many candidates to look for, right? Who are they going to pick? They're going to maybe pick the stellar one instead of maybe someone that that can help you, right? So I think that's one important thing, and that's also we'll get to how you can build it, of course, but how is it when you look at your network and what you've done in the last 6 years? How has it been good to you in that case? So you've mentioned some things like being able to ask someone for a particular advice, or being able to be helped out for something else. What are some of the other things that you've noticed in the last 6 years, maybe, where you're like, okay, it's very good that I have this network, because otherwise I couldn't have done this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the examples is this you and I talking, because it also went through different channels, and it what is important to say about this networking is it needs time to materialize. So that's very important. So don't go out, because if you go out and just to meet people and just hand out your business cards, like, yeah, I'm doing this, and like, it needs time. So nowadays, people talk about social selling. So I need to see you a couple of times. I need to see what you're doing. I need to be able to relate to your work and so on. So it means being out present. So you need to be present out there in order to get basically people notice you and to get into this point that you and I are talking about. But for me, this need to getting into networking, I said it was also one of the things out of necessity. When we moved to Vienna, so we basically packed our stuff. So my husband and I just came here as on a student visa, without contacts, without any job, and not knowing even German language. So so basically that was the big start. That was a big shift when we had to do something. So and then when what we were talking from the beginning. So when you are faced with these kind of challenges, you start thinking differently. You start acting. You start showing up. You start going out and lead and following any lead that there is. And the first thing that you do, you just contact the people that you have around yourself. Just go around and ask if there's anything, anywhere, anyone hiring, what is happening, what is new on the market, where this market is going. So for me, that's changed. So that was the very, very first start to get my first job. And I landed that really pretty fast. Within a couple of months, I had my first job, and then my career exploded from there. But way before that, if I may mention, is like when I was studying in Sarajevo at the Technical University. Basically, I was a pretty much nerd, like, give me the books, I will ace that, so that's not a problem. And then what happened basically after that, it was when I graduated in 2010, it was like slowly we started to notice that this financial crisis, companies haven't been hiring, or they were just hiring very specific profiles. So if you're not in that profile, for instance, a software developer or whatever, Q&A tester on this and that, so you're just aside. And I think that at that point I made myself a big promise that I have been following later on. It's like I don't want to do that again. Basically sitting in my job 9 to 5, acing, and then not realizing what is happening outside, what is the reality. And the reality is that it's very, very big shift happening all over the places. And for me, nowadays with these old tools that we have from LinkedIn, for instance, and all these platforms that we have, you basically have the possibility to communicate with anyone, anywhere in the world. Not just like, your closest community. Of course, you have this like online and offline life and face-to-face meeting, but basically it's been a huge shift. Nowadays, it's been a huge, with LinkedIn, with this Sync, for instance, platform, with all the platforms that happened in the meantime, you have the possibility nowadays to build your brand, basically to build yourself up, and just be out there and just let's look for the different opportunities. And at that point, I said to myself, never ever am I going to send a CV anymore. I don't want to be in that thing anymore. I don't want to be sending CVs. I don't want to be going from one interview to another where people will just like, oh, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. And I decided just to turn around the wheel and said, okay, what is that I actively can do to get opportunities coming my way. And one of the things that I usually like to talk in my webinars is, of course, getting the expert. things that we talk about, you need to know your stuff. So it's not just like going around and saying, yeah, I can do that. So you have to really have this, people need to trust you, people need to know your work, you have to have a good reputation. This is the most important thing, because anywhere you're going to get a job based on your reputation. Have you delivered on your promises? And that means you can know 5 people or 50 people or 100 people, depending on your capabilities and time that you have. But basically, with 5, you can make wonders if you deliver. And you can have 50 that you don't deliver, and they're just like, yeah, I'll call you back. Okay, I'll check it. And then you never check back. And then people will just, will not follow up with you. So I think that nowadays we will live in a very unique time in our lives, you and I, and our generation and next generations, so that we have really the possibilities to take the best out of it. You can be sitting in Vienna. I'm sitting in Vienna talking to you in Rotterdam, and people from all over the world are listening us.
Yeah.
So
that's
I think
the cool
that's
thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I think it's good to also address is, of course, it's important to have a good network, but I think it's good to also look into the next kind of topic that we're talking about. So the next one is how do you start, right? A lot of people are like, yeah, maybe you already know like a network is important, but where do you start? Where do you kind of start off? When I look at myself, I was also always like, as you said, LinkedIn is my tool for that, right? LinkedIn is kind of my networking tool, because everybody I've worked with or something like that, I will add you to LinkedIn, right? If you're on LinkedIn, I'll add you. So that's kind of first one-on-one. Like if you're starting out, you have these people you work with, you just add them, right? Add them to your network, just the people that you know. And then going along, I was like, okay, I'm not meeting enough new people, right? I'm not meeting. That's my personal kind of thing that I had. I was not meeting enough people that are maybe interesting in a way that they could help me out maybe down the line. I'm not even thinking about doing that, but I was like, it could be interesting, right? So that's also the reason why I started the podcast that I have right now, and also why I'm doing these kind of things is I want to make it more known, right? You're kind of building a brand, but also you're just getting to know people, and a podcast is in my opinion, a great tool, because it kind of gives someone something unconditionally, right? They only need to donate their time a little bit for a talk or something like that, and they get exposure. I don't get anything out of it, in a sense of course, you have a podcast for it, but you don't really get something. I don't have a benefit of it apart from knowing that person. So how did you start out? Because you're in a different position, at least you were 6 or 7 years ago.
Yes.
Where you get to a country where you maybe don't know anyone or know a few people. How did you kind of start out building your network?
Yeah, so you said now it's 6 years later, but if I go back, so I had a great pleasure that I have had mentors, few of mentors who came to me, and few of them that I came to them and asked them to be my mentors, and that's been over the last 3 years actively, and of course as well starting my first job as a trainee back 6 years. And one of my mentors, he was very pragmatic person, and I remember when we organized, and my job was always very related to meeting customers, meeting people, partners, collaboration. So I must admit, so I had to be out there. So it was not an option to not be out there. So it was like one good, positive thing. And I remember one of the events that our company organized back then, and I was at that event with a few of my colleagues, and we just sat there. We were sitting the whole time, sitting the whole time, and because it was just okay. The customers came in and out, and we were just sitting. Imagine my talk the day after, when my manager / my mentor, so he was like, "What happened last night? So you were just sitting there. You weren't meeting new people, talking to anyone. So what happened there?" And then I was like, "But I don't speak language well, and then I'm learning German and all of that." And he tells me, "Do you know Boris Nemčić?" And some of the people maybe know Boris Nemčić, but he's the king of telecommunication. He's a graduate fellow from the Electrical University of Sarajevo. He studied there. He did a PhD here. He's a big name in telecommunication industry. Everyone knows him in this industry. And he said, have you ever had a chance to talk to him? He doesn't speak very well German, but he talks to everyone and everyone is listening. So everyone wants to do business with him, not because he's like he's a CEO, but he has what to say and he finds the means to say it. And that was, I think, one of my very first lessons. And it was a good lesson, and it was very direct, very concrete, pragmatic. You don't, when you go networking, if you have if you go once a week, if you go once a month, or if every 2 weeks, if you go out and meet people, then do it properly. So don't sit in the back corner. Don't talk with people that you already have seen or know. Only or like spend the whole night talking to one person. So when you go networking, this is very important. Wherever you go, you have to have a goal. You have to have a mean why you're going there. And if it's uncomfortable for you going alone, because that can be really uncomfortable from time to time, you always have people who are like +1. I used to do that all the time, and people would along my career, I met few people who have like a really big network, and they said, just come with me. So nowadays we exchange like via email, like, I'm at this talk and this event, will you join? Because I want to catch up. So you try to combine things. So the creativity is very, very, very important. But what is much important when you go there, try to make the best out of it. Don't just shy out. Don't say, I don't understand the topic. Don't say all the experts around me and I don't know what they're talking about, or I don't know the language, and so on and so forth. Because the networking is working. You go out and you work. It's called networking, not net sitting, net eating, as some of the people say. It's like sitting at the buffet. This is the first thing that I did, and like, oh my God, no. And then from there, it started. But one of the things that really helps, and I know through my work as well, so now I'm actively involved in steering two networks. So basically we decide, which events we're going to have, who are we going to host, what our community wants to see here, and so on and so forth. But basically there has to be some mean of interest. So whatever you do, you have to have some hobbies, be it art or be it cooking or be it, I don't know, sports, whatever it is, it's the best way. So you don't have to be like crazy going, through the wall and going out of all your interest and test yourself. Go to some place where you want to expand and grow and have new knowledges or insights and so on. And there's plenty. There hasn't been better time. Basically nowadays it happens that you during the day, or you can have 5 events at the same time in Vienna, for instance, and I'm sure it's everywhere, especially nowadays with this online trend with virtual everything. You can go anywhere, and it doesn't stop there. So you have to keep this rolling. So once we exchange the contacts, once we talk, and there has to be something, you have to, okay, why are you here? What do you want to know? How can I support you? And you will see more and more people out there who go networking, and you have the organization who have they meet every week from this and that time. And every week you go there, you need to show up, you need to bring contacts and back and forth. So there's a reason why you're there. It's not just a buffet. But definitely you need to have a goal in mind, whatever it is, and you decide yourself, and especially you build your network from basically of your interests and hobbies, and that's the easiest start. For instance, for me this year has been exceptional because with this, when I said I want to reach 1,000 women. So this was another step for me, because you have that many people, people in Vienna, or people in Europe, and then I say, I want to reach 1,000 women, and that was a scary thing at the beginning. It's like, how am I going to do that? And at one of the dinners, maybe one example, at one of the dinners before the event here in Austria, I meet Anna Radulowski, who is the CEO and a founder of Women Tech Network. Okay, it's a huge network. We just met because Helga, my other colleague, knows what I'm after. So people, you have to communicate, as you said yourself at the beginning. They know for the executive academies of my alma mater, so they know what I'm after. So people, you have to communicate this what you're after. And she says, okay, I met Anna. Can you come here? Because I think you two have something in common. And this is how things happen. Things travel. We exchange contacts right away on LinkedIn. No one nowadays brings cards. It's
Yep.
LinkedIn. And month after, they post like a big, huge announcement. We're looking for speakers. We're looking for hundreds and hundreds of speakers. These are the slots that we're going to do, and so on and so forth. I applied over there, and that was a big game changer for me. So sometimes, you should let your life surprise you a little bit.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed as well when building a network is especially if you go to meetups, right? If you go to meetups that are maybe in your field or the field you want to be in, I can give an example from my end. I work a lot with AWS, so we do all kinds of things on AWS. So in the Netherlands, there's a thing called the AWS user group, right? That's is basically all the people in the Netherlands that are interested in something with AWS. And they have like meetups every month, something like that. It's every month, a few times even a month. So what happened there was I actually reached out to one guy I knew that was working at a company before. I actually didn't know him like face to face or something like that, but I knew that I saw that he was the organizer, and I saw that he worked at the same company. So on LinkedIn I was like, oh, I see that you've worked for the same company, and I see that you're organizing these meetups. So are you looking for speakers? Because that's something that I've done a few times. And I was like, if you're looking for a speaker, let me know. I'll do a speaking engagement. And that's how we got the ball rolling. And actually, what's cool about that is when you're a speaker, there's one thing that's interesting about that is people will come up to you by themselves, right? You don't even need to go through the crowd and talk to people. But I do that as well. I also go to people and just say like, what did you think of the talk? Like, are there things that you wanted to want me to do better next time or something like that? Because the interesting thing is it's an in, right? It's something to get the conversation starting. But because if they say like, oh yeah, it was interesting, blah, 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 and then your follow-up thing is like, okay, but who are you? You're like, who? You introduce yourself, of course, but what do you do? What are some of the things that you're involved with? How do you use AWS? Because you're there for AWS, so what do you do with it, right? So those are kind of things you kind of keep the conversation going. And that, I think that a lot of people are afraid to network because they just don't know where. They kind of are maybe afraid even to keep the conversation going. They're like, maybe the conversation is going to die out, right? I'm going to ask one thing and then everybody's standing there awkwardly and that's it. So that's my whole networking experience that I had. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people underestimate themselves in. You just need to kind of find a common ground, right? If you have a common ground, you will get there through those kind of things, like going through. As I said, if it's an AWS meetup, you know that people are there for AWS, so talk about that, right? Even if you don't know anything, people will. What I've noticed over the last few years is people are really, really open to helping someone, right? You just need to ask. You just need to say like, maybe you're just starting out. You're saying like, I just started out. I want to know more about AWS. I don't know something specific, but you said this and this and this in your talk. Can you explain a little bit? People will help you out. It's just well, there are exceptions, but those are really, really, really rare. Like those are the like 1% that maybe doesn't want to help you. I've never noticed it myself. So those are some of the things that I've noticed in meetups, for example. But building your network, as I said, what I did with the podcast is a great thing, but you can do it in other ways as well. If you're more comfortable writing, for example, if you write blogs and stuff like that, ask someone just on LinkedIn, right? And ask someone you admire, like, okay, I'm doing this blog. Can I like do an interview with you? Or can I ask you a few questions? You just write them up whenever you have time. And I'll post them on my website or something like that, right? It doesn't even need to be, but it's just a way to kind of get in. And you need to be vocal about some kind of things. I had, for example, Guy Kawasaki on my podcast, and that's a huge name, and everybody knows he worked at Apple and stuff like that. But the way I got to him was actually through a different podcast that I did. I just mentioned like he's on my bucket list, and the guy was like, I know him, so let's link you guys up and do a podcast with him. So those are kind of the things that that you need to be vocal. It's all about like saying, okay, this is what I want to reach. As you said, I want to reach 1,000 women. The interesting thing about that is you're making a commitment to yourself, but others will also keep you committed, right? Others will also say like,
Yes.
Adela, at the end of the year, if you don't have 1,000 women, then we know you're gonna get questions about it, right?
Yes.
What's up with your
Yes.
goal that you've
Yes.
set for yourself? So that I
Yes.
think that's a big thing, a big thing.
Absolutely. So what you said, it resonates. You said meetups, but it resonates in every conversation. It's like a building relationship, you know.
Yeah.
And what you said as well, I really like. And if you don't know, it's okay. You know, you're there to learn. Every day I learn new things that I didn't know yesterday, and that's what.
Yep.
Why you wake up every day again and say, okay, there's something new. There's something new. There's something new to discover. And if you go that way, and there's nothing to be kind of ashamed of, you know, I don't know this, and I mean, for instance, AWS, and I should know that. No, you shouldn't. Okay, you know, 50 other things that maybe someone else doesn't. And be vocal. I think that's very, very, very important. And I would like to see that even more. So I talk about that as well within our community. Whatever it is that you're chasing, tell us, because I don't know. If you don't tell me what you are after, so how the hell should we know where you're going? You know, it's a fair question. It's a very fair question, and this is if you meet the real networkers, you know, the real people who own the game, they will ask you, what can I do for you? So how can I serve you? What is your goal? Where are you heading? So you be prepared to answer this kind of questions, because then you get, people will start to see that, okay, you're there for the real thing. And if you continue showing up, that's also very important. As you said, follow up. So that's the game.
And you can even cold email, you can even cold message on LinkedIn. If it's like genuine, people will help you out if you're genuine about what you want to do, right? If I had it myself, you want to get somewhere. So say for instance you want to be a CTO or something like that. You've already made some steps, but you don't know what a CTO does, or you don't know what that kind of entails. What does a CTO do, right? What's their kind of role within a company? What I did actually was just cold message one of the bigger companies in the Netherlands, and I found the CTO on LinkedIn, I think it was, and I just sent him an email like, okay, I'm this and this, I'm this and this guy. I want to get to actually get to the point that you're at right now. So what are some of the things that you've noticed, right? And people will help you out as well. So maybe it won't be in a conversation or immediately or something like that, but you've sent that email. People know about you, right? You exist. It's not they will maybe later on, if you send them another email, they will look back into that email and they're like, oh, that's the guy or girl that I helped back then.
Definitely.
Right? That's the thing. So one thing that we talked about briefly is being vocal, right? So one thing that I think is interesting to come up with in the next topic is, how do you kind of become more open if you're introverted, for example? Because there's a lot of people that are like, I'm introverted, I can't network, if I go to meetups, I freeze, I don't do anything, right? I don't because the feeling that you had of sitting around doing nothing the whole evening while it's a networking event or whatever, I think resonates with a lot of people that are introverted, and especially people in tech, right? Especially people in tech that maybe are not in those kind of settings every day. If you're a salesperson, you're going to be in that setting every day, right? But if you're in tech, maybe you have a meeting once a month or something like that, and that's it. So what are some of the things you would suggest to people to be more open if you're introverted in this case?
You know what? One of the advantages, a very good advantage that introverts have compared to us extroverts, as you can see, is, and it's so crucial for building relationship, is active listening. It's so important. You that will change the game, because when you meet the new person and she starts talking, she starts talking about things that are important, because people love to talk about what is important for them, like we are doing now. So extroverts will extroverts are good, like, okay, setting the vibe, energy, having people moving. Okay, let's do something. What's new, bringing the energy. But the introverts will remember why, we'll remember where do you go to school, or we remember specifics about you. Okay, you like this meetup AWS because of this, or I come here because of that. So introverts, so they're amazing. So, and the best what can happen to you is the combination. So if it's the combination, extroverts and introverts, and this is what I sometimes do with my community. So when we go 1+1, so I just like, oh, crazy, meeting people and like setting the energy. And it's like, have you met my friend? Like in the How I Met Your Mother, have you met my friend? He's a great, help it out. It's not. I don't see as a problem. It's just a different way. It's just a different way of recognizing everyone's, like the plus points. Like, okay, he knows this and he can tell you this and that. So warm it up at the atmosphere. I think that's very important as well for people who organize meetups, where you set yourself with the introverts. So you need to be careful, as if you're an event organizer, you need to be careful about it. How do you set the environment so that you get people to open up and to share their experience? That there are different ways. For instance, my husband, he's an introvert. He's an introvert, and we visit a lot of conferences and places and events and our friends, and he remembers all these things. He remembers the talk that he had with, and I'm like, okay, I need to call my friend, and I forgot those things, everything, and what he was saying, why is he there? And he was like, I remember because we had the conversation, and he specifically told me that. So I think introverts are like amazing. And if you are in networking for a big game, if you're meaning it seriously and not just like, okay, let me get the promotion and I will close my LinkedIn profile and I don't care. But if you're in a big game, then it's all about, remembering things, being crazily organized. Because I meet so many people on a daily basis, I need to sort it out somewhere. Even it's an effort, it's work at the end of the day. So you go back, and a couple of hours, I have like folders after folders after folder, starting with Excel files. Like, okay, this person, for instance, is this, and she's looking a job here, and this guy is offering a job, and so on. So I think the best way you can do is combine it. And definitely, as an introvert, you have an amazing advantage because you listen. You listen what people are saying. And later on, nowadays, for instance, via LinkedIn or virtual, it's again a different setup. So it helps you. You don't have to be there. So you can write and say, I remember we talked about this and that. And it's a definitely big plus. So if I go extrovert or introvert with my team, I take introvert.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is people won't know this about me, but I'm pretty much an introvert. If you nobody would say that because you're kind of doing all these kind of things and you're having a podcast and you're doing speaking engagements and stuff like that. But I know that when I think about it, when I was younger, if I had to go into a room with like 20 people that I don't know, I would freak out. I would like, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to happen, right? That's, even when you think about like speaking in front of 20 people is already like even a bigger step where you're like, oh, this is not going to happen. So one thing that helped me overcome these kind of things is, you kind of know like the things you need to do. One thing that helped was I needed to get better at public speaking. So one thing that was one of the things that I was like, I need to be. You're vulnerable when you're on stage, right? You're on your own. You need to talk, and you need to talk about a certain topic. So that's one thing that I was like, okay, I need to get that right. I need to get that right first before I can go all these kind of other things. Because when you get better at that, your confidence grows, right? You're growing in confidence, and like, if I'm going to talk one-on-one, that's not a problem anymore, right? It's almost not an issue anymore, because what's one-on-one if you're standing in front of 100 people, right? That 100, then one-on-one is not that kind of it's not that scary anymore. That's the kind of thing. So but what you mentioned is good. You need to kind of push yourself out of it, right? You need to have someone that helps you out to push you through that boundary of being not afraid, but even when you're hesitant, right? If you're hesitant of going to a meetup or something like that, it helps when there is someone that is maybe like yourself, an extrovert, that just goes out and just talks to everybody, and then you're standing there next to it, and you're going to introduce them, and then they get into that conversation.
Yes.
So it's more of pushing yourself like out of that box. You're more than just an introvert in that case, right? And you will see that it helps. And as you said, they have that unique kind of capability to listen very well, right? Which extroverts have a lot less. Sure, they will listen, but it's much more on a you get like maybe the kind of few things that just came up when you were talking, right? When you were like, okay, these are kind of the highlights that I had, and that's it. While introverts will actually go in some of the details that you maybe missed, but just by talking to someone. So,
and plus they take time to process. That's very important. Introverts, they, it's not like being out there all the time. You go to specific places that you're really interested, and you take time to process it. And like, okay, what Amer told me, that's important. So you take time to process. And the next time I see you, and then like, okay, this is, or I continue working and say, okay, in the background of my head, so what Amer is looking after.
Yeah, and sometimes I get back to someone maybe the next day after their talk, right? Just to kind of process what they were talking about and seeing. Of course, you have some questions on the fly, but there are some questions that just come to you in the next day or something like that. So I think these are kind of the things that you should be doing if you want to be more open, right? If you just in general, I don't even think it's just for the introvert. It's just in general. If you want to be better at this, it's good to do public speaking, get someone to go with you to these kind of events that maybe is easier or has a less hard time getting to talk to people, right? Getting to these conversations that you want to have. So go ahead, you wanted to say something.
No, I just want to say that you mentioned public speaking, and I think I didn't meet that many people who has the easy time with public speaking. And
nobody knows.
Yes, exactly. And I am one of those people as well who just, I think last year there was a conference of 150 people. I just froze. It was like 2 sentences, and I froze. It was like, breathe. But the thing is, you have to get back. The thing is, you have to get back, and then you have to try out. And it's just like at that point, you just like everything froze, and I don't remember what's the next sentence. But I had my wonderful colleague next to me, and it's like, okay, now I got it.
Yeah.
But you have to have these people around yourself. I think that's another topic, like this support system. Who do you spend time with? Who do you trust? Who do you take care of? And back and forth.
Yeah.
So that's very important. And on the other side, when I said, okay, I really want to get better in this, I looked for people who do that professionally. So basically, I have, as I mentioned, mentors and coaches since the last years, and this year as well, working with them. There's a lot of things that you can do. It's just it's out there. It's out there. It's not easy. It's not easy because we all. If I'm good at meeting people, there's other things that as well on my list that I want to do as well. So it's not just there's nothing to do. So there's a lot of work, but the good thing is there are a lot of people who can support you. As well in that way. And don't push it too hard, you push yourself, but as well it's good to have a support around yourself to tell you how it can be done easier.
And then we get back to that kind of goal setting as well, because if you say you're going to do something, people will help, especially if you're talking about it with people that you have daily contact with, right? They're going to help. They're going to hold you accountable at some point in time, right? They're going to say like, "Hey, didn't you say you're going to do this and this and this?" Right? Even if it's just in a easy conversation, they will mention that, right? Or if you want to do more public speaking, go and say to an organizer of a meetup or a meeting event or whatever you want to call it, just say, I want to be a speaker, right? If you've committed, if you've said like, okay, you're going to do it, you're going to do it. You're not going to chicken out then, right? Then you're just then you're just embarrassing yourself, right? If you chicken out, so you need to do it now. So you're kind of daring yourself to do it. So when you have your network, when you have your network established, I think there's the next topic I want to discuss as well. So what are some of the good things and the bad things to do when you have your network, right? You have this network of people around you. What are some of the things that you would say like are good, and what are some of the things that are bad? It doesn't have to be a lot, but just a few examples.
Mm-hmm. So for me, so the good thing is there's a lot of good things. As I told you at the beginning, so I go to people for insight, for the next trends. I follow like people who know their stuff, who are experts and thought leaders in their fields. So for me, there has this kind of professional and personal. It blends a little bit. So it's not that I just after 5 o'clock I close it and I don't think about it. But it's some friendships with the network. There's a lot of friendships, long-term friendships basically happening, because you just see, okay, you just continue meeting people, and some people you meet for like 1 or 2 times and it's enough, and some people you just want to continue meeting again and again, because there's so many things that you want to say to one another. And with all these networks, I think what is very, very important is to keep in touch with your reputation. So it's one of the things that you have to be really, really, really careful, not just like about networking, but in general. It's your reputation that will follow you in anything that you do. So keep that in mind. Who do in which networks you are, because people will think about you when you say, I'm in this network. Okay, why she's in that network or the other network? So people will have their ideas firstly. So without even they will make an opinion. So without even thinking, okay, what is behind of that? And I have publicly, for instance, announced that it's on my profile as well, and the activities that we do with the Female Leaders Network. So it's very, very publicly. It's well known. So people know for what they can come to me, and the reputation is definitely one of the things that we have to maintain, because out of this, I don't know, maybe in 2 years I open my own company, maybe I want to build my team, maybe people will be looking for investors or whatever it is, but keep that in mind. Who do you basically spend time with it, and there will be always more things that you can do than time that you have, and then you have to be really, really cautious about it, that you keep in mind on your goals, what you want to achieve, as well how do you give back and serve the community in a best way. And that's very important when you have a network. So you allow others, and this is the good thing, you allow others to tap into that power of your network, basically.
Yeah.
That say, okay, this person, can you please introduce me? And then you need to know who you are introducing. So if I don't know you, the question is if I'm going to introduce you or if I'm going not to introduce you, because if I introduce you, that means I stand next to you.
Or yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so one of the things that comes to mind when I think about the bad things that you can do, one thing that you already mentioned, I think it's kind of not burning bridges, right? You don't want to burn bridges with people. You don't want someone to think he's not a nice person, or they're really arrogant or something like that, right? It's, of course, some people will think that either way, right? Even if you're happy-go-lucky, but you try to at least give a good impression on someone and leave that good impression. And I think that's important also when you're, for example, leaving a job, right? If you're leaving a job, leave in the best way possible, right? Because people that were in there, people are going to still work at that company, right? If you leave it in a good way, people will remember that. They will remember, like, okay, he left in a good spirit, right? He or she left in a good spirit, and that's the way you're remembered. That's kind of the thing that I think of, because later on, someone that was maybe working at the company moves on to something else, and they can maybe help you out in just landing that thing that you want to get, right? So that's kind of the thing that I noticed. And one thing that we already talked about briefly was just having patience, right? You can't be impatient if you're building a network. If you think like, I'm going to meet you today and tomorrow you're going to help me out just because we just linked or something like that. That's not going to happen. You need to build kind of a relationship over that. Like someone's posts on LinkedIn if you're linked to them. Comment on those posts, like interact with what they're doing, because that also makes you visible, right? It makes you visible to someone that when, for example, you later on ask them something, they will be much more receptive to that than just you're following them and that's it, right? It's just you probably need to put in 10 times more than you're going to get out of it at the end, right? That's the kind of thing. So you're going to put in maybe 10 times the amount of comments, likes, and stuff like that before you can actually use one of the things that you want to use your network for in this case. So I think that's something that I've noticed over the years. And of course, the good things are when you can actually use it, you can actually use your network and know what you want to do. So those are the things that I've noticed.
But you touched a really great topic that we could talk for days, and it's
Absolutely.
definitely about this, being active in your community. Because if you're not, if you're not there, just a number. So if I don't see you, if I don't see you basically through your comments, through your content, so who are you? It's just a picture. So just a picture, a name, and that's it. So basically, you need to. It can be hard, and this is another topic that has as well to do with the confidence, for some people. And I do a lot of LinkedIn training as well for the community. And it's not about, that they don't know how it's done, so that they don't know the tools and means. It's basically like, okay, I'm putting myself out there, because with every post, with every comment, with everything that you do, you give a little bit of yourself, and then how do you feel comfortable? And I still have this feeling, and even though I wrote like articles and posts and comments and so on and so forth, lots of them, but you always think, okay, what is this? What reaction is this going to have? And I like what you said. I think there is this saying that goes along. People will forget everything, but not the way you left them, the energies, the spirit that you left with them. So if you say, I don't know, and I will do something, I will try it out and help you out, okay, but the way how you felt them, or just you don't have anything to add, I'm the smartest one in the room, and you just do that way. So I think that's super crucial, and I think remembering that we are all in this same boat. So it's basically a community around the world that everyone is trying out something. It's not. I like to say the content is not a PhD. It's not a hypothesis. We are not in a lab where we're testing something and then giving it out and saying, okay, this is the Adela's law, and this is how it's going to be, and that's it. It's not that way. It's just, you're a person, you're a human being who has these ideas and thoughts, and in most of the cases, as you said yourself, there will be more positive and more receptive to than not. So in my experience is that people will lend you a hand and help you out more often than they will not. And if someone doesn't answer to my message at some point, it's okay. If it's important to me, I will send the next week and the next week and next week, and maybe there will be some other ways how we can reach one another and see one another.
Yeah, one thing I picked up from, I think it was there's a very good I think it's a podcast or it is a video by Tim Ferriss that's actually called a little bit like this live session, which also goes into how to build this world-class network of yours, right? And one thing that he mentioned, I think it was in that particular thing, is when you're, for example, cold emailing or cold inviting someone, if you're asking a question directly, right, you have a direct question that you want answered, it's always good to end off with no is also an answer, right? No is also an answer. You can also just say no, and that's it. You don't need to feel obligated to, or at least you don't even need to answer me, right? It's just no pressure. This is what I want. And actually, from the moment I started doing that, I got more replies. I just got more replies because people are like, oh yeah, okay. I mean, I didn't want to do this anyway, so I'm just going to write no and that's it, right? I don't have the time or whatever, right? And sometimes if you just say like, looking forward to meeting from you, that kind of already puts a pressure on them, like they need to do something, right? Instead of it being like a, well, if you want to, you can. If you don't want to, you don't need to, right? You can also just mail me and say no, and I know what I'm at, right? I know where I'm at. I know that you're not going to help me right now. That's it. So I think that that moves into the next topic as well. So how do you use your network, right? We've touched on it a little bit, just building your network and having the good and bad things. But how do you use it in a way that is beneficial for what you want to get? So are there some examples that you can come up with right now?
So I think we touched a couple of those examples. So for instance, this you and I sitting here and talking about this is also as well through our network and through different platforms that we are together, for instance, with the Bosnia and Herzegovina Future Foundation. So I think that's one of the ways how you get along. Or for instance, me posting about this 1,000 women mission that I am on in 2020 and being part of the women in tech community, it brought me immense responses and offers and people saying, okay, let's do something together, let's collaborate, let's do podcasts, let's do interviews. Can you be part of our mentorship group that we have? Can you come and talk about this within our community? So you are basically in the driving seat. I would like to say, I'd like to point out that you're in the driving seat, and depending where you are. So for instance, last year I was using my network in a completely different way. For instance, last year I moved from one job, one company to another company, and in that year I was using my and I was posting completely different content. I was talking in a different language basically, and I was having different talks with people from my industry basically, because in that year I was on a completely different goal. I wanted to I wanted to move from one job to another. I wanted to try new things out. I want to challenge myself. And then I was using strategically my network for that purpose. In 2020, or like a year back when I started the MBA, it was I was meeting was part of the peer group of hundreds of people around the world, and I was specifically went for that MBA because I wanted to meet people from this from Austria, from that region, because I wanted to build up my network. I want to have peers within this region and within this industry. So it's for me it shifts from one to another. Basically, it's just like grows with you. Grows with you, goes with you, and you are you are basically the driver of that. And for this 2020, with this goal of reaching 1,000 women, I had over 10 corporations in the last years that I just met, also through LinkedIn, also through my network, also through different platforms. And the platforms are amazing things. And you, for instance, mentioned the AVS, the MITA group. That's also a platform for me, or the Bosnia and Herzegovina Futures Foundation, or the Executive Academy, or all the other platforms that you're part of it, because they bring amazing reach with them. And if you can relate to them, you can basically find a way to work together, collaborate, and bring something new for their communities. So I think it's basically on a personal, it's on a personal goal. If you are looking for a job, then you use your network in a completely different way. If you're reaching 1,000 women, then it's a different tone and different content, different people that you interact. But basically, the network is there to give and get. So, and I love to live with the idea that I'm giving more than I'm taking, and that people who are with me on this journey, that are basically profiting as well and giving their part. There's something to the world. That's the best you can do. Share your knowledge.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here is that, as you said, you need to put in more probably than you're going to get out of it, especially on the short term, right? And on the short term, you're not going to get maybe you're not going to get anything out of it. It could be that you don't get anything out of it, but you at least made that network, right? In case you tomorrow need a new job or need to do something, you have that network, right? Yes. So what's the kind of goal with the 1,000 women? So say for instance you get that, you reach that goal, right? What do you feel it could be used for, in your opinion?
So for me, this goal is almost there. So I'm very, very, very close to it, and For me, the reason for doing that, there's like lots of things why I'm doing it, and it's part of my 10-year vision and what I want to do and how I want to be basically remembered for it. And for the other very important thing is giving back. So I like to say that through my life, and you and I talked a little bit. Through my life, I've been very much. I had an extraordinary journey. I started from really nothing and very poor beginnings, and here I am, and that is thanks to, of course, the ambitious. I'm a very ambitious person, and you put the work in it like yourself. But on the other hand, I have had always people who were supporting me. So who are like, okay, I get you. I've gone the same way. I want to support you. I want to help you, be it financially, be it through contacts, mentorship, and so on and so forth. And this is my way of giving back to the community. So I was thinking, okay, now I'm at this level. So I tried so many things out, and that was the reason why I actively involved into building these two communities here in Austria as well. Because I said, okay, I've seen so many things. I see that people are coming to me and saying, can you show us how you do networking? Can you show us how you do LinkedIn, personal branding? Because let's be honest, it's there's still this gap for women as well, saying in many ways, but one of them is being vocal. One of them saying, okay, this is what I want, and being okay with that. It's being vocal, being out, showing yourself out there and saying, okay, this is what I do. This is what I want to achieve. And I think I wanted to just do it with my example. So you can always do it like a sponsorship and financially, but the other way is for me, okay, I will show it, and I will, document, basically share this journey along the way. And it's been it's been a really so much amazing feedback, and so many amazing women that I met, and so many different projects that I have been involved. And on the other side, of course, I have a mean behind it saying, okay, this year I wanted to improve my speaking skills, communication skills. I wanted to go out. I wanted to do this and that. So it's somehow, for me, it's always a kind of puzzle. So you have to put it together. So it's not sacrificing basically yourself, your wealth, health, and everything to go out there, but it's combining it together. And I think showing how you did it and what you did, and it's much more authentic, and it helps people to relate to your story. Okay, starting from nothing, because I have like 10 fingers, I have 10 fingers. I have a normal laptop, normal internet, and LinkedIn profile, nothing more, basically. Yep. That's it. It's not if I want to people say, okay, if she did it, I can do it as well. So it's not a rocket science. It's not a rocket science. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think it's going to be interesting. I know. Are you going to write this up, or how are you going to share the kind of journey?
That's another. During the summer, I was thinking about, there's lots of maybe write book about it. There's some ideas, along the journey, you're just starting to figure out some things. And I, of course, post a lot of these webinar talks and so on through LinkedIn, of course, and through other means. But definitely there will be a book, one or the other way, or something like that. I just need to, sit during the summer and put a plan together.
Very cool. I'm definitely, if it's going to be a book, I'm definitely buying that book, because it's going to be interesting. But I think it's a good and nice way to wrap this up. Of course, people can follow us on Twitter. So I've put in our Twitter names on the screen, of course. And is there some parting remark that you want to leave with people, or is there something that you just want to add at the end?
So I want to thank everyone who's watching this, and later on as well. Of course, I'm going to be sharing among the community, and I want to really ask people to. We live in a world where every hand is necessary. So everyone. So we are living in an unprecedented times, as we like to say, and everyone stepping up, and it's amazing to see people rising through this crisis, taking the ownership, making the world the way they want to see it. And this is very, very important, and that's one of the reasons why I'm very actively involved into these networks as well, because you see, once you put something out there, you see, the fruits of your work. You see people, women taking owner and saying, okay, I can do it. Okay, I did the first post, I had the first connection, I got the first job, I got the first promotion, and so on and so forth. So I think I would invite everyone who's not part of one or the other community to actively engage and involve, because it brings so much for yourself and of course for the community, because that's what we leave behind ourselves.
Very cool. Very cool. I think it's a great message to end off with. Of course, thank you for being my guest. It was pretty cool to talk, and to hear these kind of examples is very cool, because those are some of the things that I've seen over the years as well. On my journey as well. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you. It is a pleasure for me too.
And for the viewers, you can find all the kind of things. I will just post a slide with some of my information if you want to get in touch with me. You've seen the Twitter for Adela, but I will post some of the other things in the description in the video on YouTube at least. So Adela, thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Thank you. Cheers.